Plus, to be a part of your day, Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go out to Washington, D.C. Our great friend Dan Stein joining us from FAIR. Dan, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Kevin?
Not bad. Certainly wondering about the border and everybody else trying to get in and the wall, and kind of gets lost with Jim Comey, but good to have you with us, Dan.
Always good to talk to you, Kevin. Good to talk to you.
So where are we this week with trying to secure America?
Well, I mean, the latest news this week is that Jerry Brown in California are saying, yeah, well, we'll deploy the National Guard as long as they don't do anything to help the Border Patrol, basically. So, whatever reason that Jerry Brown gave for agreeing in the first place, it's very clear that, he represents a wing of the Democratic Party that is simply in opposition to even border enforcement.
It's very odd when you think of just how California has been overrun, and then you have people, at the top of the hour, people protesting against the sanctuary city, sanctuary state laws. It's not as if the leadership of California just doesn't listen to their people.
No, you're seeing a major upheaval in California, mostly centered in Orange County, in opposition to what the state officials are doing. Xavier Becerra, who's the Attorney General, is working very closely with Obama's former Attorney General to try to fight all immigration laws in this country, including everything the Trump administration is trying to do. And a big issue, of course, is the census. The Trump administration is putting back into the census a question that was there for most of our history, simply asking whether you're a citizen, provides good data to enforce the Voting Rights Act, would help identify voter suppression efforts and all kinds of good things. And it would certainly help taxpayers understand the cost of immigration if you had better data, which this would provide. They took the question out in 1960, after 1960, claiming they could do an estimate. But as the illegal population has increased, these estimates have become more iffy. And now the census debate has become embroiled in this whole effort to diminish the meaning and value of citizenship itself. And so they're opposing asking this question. And they try to make the claim that the Constitution requires the census to count all persons. Well, the issue here is not who they're counting. I mean, they want to count, if they want to count people who are, aliens in transit or people who are visitors, like on D2 visas, I mean, they can count them, but they don't want to count them for reapportionment purposes. The census doesn't count all persons. The census actually only counts residents. And they only want to count you in your usual place of abode. So if your usual place of abode is Canada, or, if you're visiting from Paris to see the Washington Monument, they don't want to count you in the census, and they don't. So they don't count all persons. And for almost 40 years, we've argued there's only one constitutional purpose for the census, and that's to reapportion House congressional districts. All the other data they collect are useful in marketing and surveys for government programs and all that, but they're not constitutionally based. And our argument has always been and continues to be that aliens who are not here lawfully do not have a lawful residence, and they stand in the same position as somebody who's here on a tourist visa. And of course, underlying this whole debate is that mostly the Democratic Party wants to include illegal aliens for reapportionment because major blue states like California have several, probably about 6 or 7 seats in the House of Representatives they would not have if you excluded those here illegally from the census, from the reapportionment component of the census count. So any question like a citizenship question takes you down the slippery slope toward actually understanding what's going on, right? So they oppose that. They oppose border control. They oppose building a border wall. They oppose enforcing the law interior. They oppose state and local cooperation with local police with the federal immigration authorities. They oppose identification of eligibility to vote at the time of registration or at the time of voting. They oppose any numerical limits. They oppose eliminating chain migration. They oppose any change to asylum law. They oppose any work documents to the E-Verify program to make sure American workers get those jobs. I mean, we're running dangerously close to most of the Democratic Party supporting complete border anarchy.
Boy, talk about the party of no. Dan Stein joining us, KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's get back to this because you have the confusion being perpetrated by the media when they say, well, we should count everybody. California is going to lose House seats. And I'm thinking the census was designed to count American citizens. And as you've said, Dan, so articulately here at KIDO Talk Radio, to make sure that U.S. citizens are represented in House districts, not citizens of the world.
Well, Kevin, first of all, the question is, it's not a question of whether you're counting them or not. No one is saying that non-citizens will not be counted. Asking the question, are you a U.S. citizen, is like asking, like how many rooms are in your house and all these other very intrusive questions. Asking whether you're a citizen or not is hardly intrusive at all, right?
Exactly.
So here we are, facing a reality that we're being lied to, okay? Because the question is not whether they're counting persons, because they don't count persons. The census counts residents in their usual place of abode. They don't count ambassadors. They don't count diplomatic personnel. They don't count aliens in transit. And they don't count tourists. So obviously they don't count all persons. They count residents. Secondly, they have made it abundantly clear that by asking whether you're a citizen or not, that doesn't mean you're not going to be excluded from the count if you answer no. So this whole thing is a red herring. In fact, all it is an effort to try to prevent the American people from getting core and useful information about the cost of immigration and, frankly, about having a better estimate of how many people are here illegally, right? And so this institutional desire not to know how taxpayers are paying for the cost of illegal immigration in education, in housing, in various public benefit programs is intentional. It has been intentional for a long time. All you have to do is look at any TV debate on NBC or MSNBC about the census question, and you hear one false premise after another stated in a desire to try to confuse the public, saying, well, if you ask questions, people here illegally won't fill out the census form. Hey, guess what? I don't care. If they don't want to fill out the census form because they're here illegally, is that really our problem?
Well, and that's the point. And Dan, when we think about this, and again, that's the point I was alluding to. Well, they're going to be in the shadows and they're going to feel intimidated. And I'm thinking, these are the people that come out and vote illegally. These are the people that get our services. These are the people that, big business gets subsidized by the government because we're paying for them. I'm thinking to myself, it's just a false narrative. And as you said, what's the harm in saying, are you a citizen?
Well, because you basically have divisions in the country now where you have these elites, some in the business community, many on the left, who simply want people here illegally. More the merrier, period. Okay? Business likes them because they bid down the cost of labor, keep down wage pressure, prevent unions from being formed, a whole bunch of reasons. And on the left, they want them because they vote heavily Democrat, whether they vote now legally or not. If they're ever given citizenship, they will vote heavily Democrat because their education and poverty rates are so low, they're more receptive to the, big government transfer payment message, which is kind of funny because these political alliances between like big agriculture and the left to try to reward illegal immigration, it's hard to understand because in the end, the business community's approach is actually going to wind up shifting the electorate to the left in favor of big government because the very labor they claim they're depending on is going to be so heavily dependent on taxpayer services that, they're going to vote heavily for the party that promises those services. This isn't rocket science.
Right.
And yet you wonder why they can't see the long-term interest of a free society with free people and a small government and maximum liberty in our American labor market, why they would want to perpetuate this kind of dependence on illegal labor. But they do. They work together, both the left and the business community. And that's part of why it's so hard for the average American to figure out why nothing gets done. It's really become globalist versus nationalist. Americans who believe that their sense of community is tied to our national borders, that capitalism is a great system, free markets are a great system, but in the end, capitalism should be working for our communities and for the benefit of our people, and not this globalized nonsense where manufacturing is just moved to wherever they have the cheapest labor. And then we're somehow supposed to be able to afford these cheap goods, even though the jobs that we're creating here are not paying enough to afford them. So the model has some problems. And that's one of the reasons Trump's in the White House. And Trump has basically asked the House, Paul Ryan, he says, I've got some great legislation. You know, the Goodlatte bill ends chain migration, mandates E-Verify, a lot of the things I ticked off earlier, the Goodlatte bill would do. Bob Goodlatte, he's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House, last term in Congress. And Paul Ryan is saying, well, we don't really have the support. It would end chain migration. He says, well, you don't have enough support. How can House Republicans not stand with Trump on these issues after he won this election, you know, against everyone said it was going to be a shoo-in, and Hillary Clinton will not deliver. And, you know, we understand why it's hard to get stuff through the Senate. But like Paul Ryan, one of the big mistakes that Trump made was leaving Ryan as Speaker, in my view.
Our great friend Dan Stein joining us from FAIR. Dan, if people want more information on how they can help and to hold their Congress folks accountable, what can they do?
Well, you know, naturally come to our website. It's fairus.org. That's fairus.org. And obviously listen to your program. You sign up for our alerts and you become empowered as an active citizen to help counterbalance the Mark Zuckerbergs and the multi-billion-dollar interests that were George Soros and the others. And naturally, shows like yours are important, and hopefully we'll see it feet to the fire later this year.
Looking forward to it, Dan. Thank you, sir.
Kevin, great to talk to you.
All right, our great friend Dan Stein joining us from FAIR. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Hey, it's getting ready for the end of the school year. If your child is getting ready to take the SAT or ACT, and you're thinking, well, you know, I'd love to get them some additional training, but I'm worried about the cost, go to KIDOTalkRadio.com, go to the Kevin Miller section, or scroll down. You'll see Power Your Education, brought to you by our friends at Grade Power Learning. And check that out today. All you have to do is write a 100-word essay about why education is important to you and your family. Maybe you graduated high school, the first in your family to do so, or college or technical school or what have you. You'd like the same for your child. Or you have your student do it. And then what happens is Grade Power Learning is going to give you, if you win, if we pick your essay, a free 50-hour training session that could be prep for the ACT, the SAT, or doing what I'm doing, learning math and grammar and all these things all over again. But this time it would be for your student, for your child, to learn the study skills like time management and other things that most of us take for granted. And most of us think, gosh, I wish I would have learned. So check that out today. Power Your Education, brought to you by Grade Power Learning, conveniently located in Meridian, Idaho. That's at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Coming up next, it's a mess, how to deal with it. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Some Philadelphians are angry at the coffee chain for its treatment of the black men over the weekend. Starbucks CEO Kevin Johnson traveled to the city to address it, suggest more training for employees, and to apologize to the men arrested. But Philadelphia Councilman Kenyatta Johnson says perceptions and attitudes have to change first.
I'm of the firm belief if these particular two young men didn't have sweatsuits on, they wouldn't have been targeted.
Some Philadelphians have called for the firing of the employee who asked for police to be called. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
And there we have it, the latest faux outrage over the weekend protests in Philadelphia over the controversial arrest of two black men in a Starbucks. It's continued throughout the week, as you heard from the G-Man, Gernal Scott. Starbucks has taken action against the manager, who called police and said, look, I've got two people that are loitering here. Can you remove them? Right? And so what happened next?
Members of Power Interfaith marched from their building. Clergy leaders later led the group on a march to other Starbucks locations around the city.
No racist police! No peace!
The mayor and police commissioner met with the head of Starbucks at City Hall. Starbucks higher-ups say the employee at the center of all this is no longer at the store.
And there we have it. Don't we have enough to worry about, like crime in Philadelphia? Don't we have enough to worry about than being overly sensitive? Look, somebody comes into your place of business, regardless of their race, and they just sit down. They take up space. I've been to many businesses that if you don't buy anything, you don't get to use the restroom. That's what happened in this case. So I find it ironic that Starbucks, the bastion of liberalism, the bastion of the liberal latte progressive pact, if you will, the progressive Politburo. I'm getting my latte, my fufu, my grande, whatever. all of a sudden finds itself at the target of the liberal ire with allegations of racism because the guy was just doing his job, which was trying to keep the place clean for paying customers. Now, other people will say, well, if they were white people sitting there, look, they asked the people to leave. They refused. You call the police. Isn't that good business as opposed to racism? And again, the theater of the absurd that continues to permeate throughout our entire country, where you're not allowed to ask people to leave if they're loitering in your business.
One, we want the manager fired immediately. And number two.
You know, recently we went back and looked at, and I was listening to George Noory last night about the death of Dr. King, the assassination of Dr. King, who fought for real rights, who battled real racism, who spent time in the Birmingham, Alabama jail. Letters from Birmingham. He wrote letters that were circulated throughout the country, fighting for voting rights, fighting for education. And this is what the movement has come to.
We want every officer involved with the arrest fired immediately. They should not be on the force.
That person definitely should get some decaf. Traffic and weather together, 25 after. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So here we have this protest going on.
We are here and we are focused. We do not tolerate racial profiling.
Racial profiling. This is what's going on in the city of Philadelphia. This is what we call, thank goodness we live in Idaho segment. Because, again, here you have a business person saying, look, you guys have to leave. If you don't leave, I'm going to call the cops. Somebody films it. They charge people with racism because they didn't follow direction. If you don't follow direction, if you don't follow the speed limit, if you don't obey the laws, and you're not arrested, well, pretty soon we're going to have lawlessness, right?
We're here to shut it down. You can be served by Sidetrack Club and all the other nonsense. Black men, black people, black and brown people are not safe.
Again, from a business owner who asked them to leave because they weren't allowed to use the restroom, from a business owner that asked them to say, look, guys, you're taking up space used by paying customers. We appreciate you hanging out. I'm glad you like the comfortable seats, but you have to leave. If all of a sudden you're going to protest and remove the manager, they're not going to fire the manager. The manager did nothing wrong. But because we live in the faux outrage society that we live in today, because everything is, we make something, mountain out of a molehill. Something is bigger than it is. We have these professional antagonists that are backing down the Starbucks CEO. We're going to have special training. What's the special training? If somebody comes in and if they're of a particular ethnicity, you're not going to ask them to leave because they're not paying. You're going to change your whole store policy, and then you have people saying the cops should be fired. I feel for the people that are trying to do their jobs. I feel for the people that are trying to work. I feel for them. This is just crazy stuff, right? Think about that. And really what the left is trying to do is silence dissent. And I just love that this is happening to Starbucks. I really wish it wouldn't happen to anyone. This does not bring us together. This does not bring us together when we seek to look at excuses for misbehavior. For people that if you wouldn't do it in front of your parents or your grandparents or people at church, you just shouldn't do it. So again, I'm thinking Starbucks is right. Your thoughts, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up next, Congressman Labrador on his plan to be Idaho's next governor. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. Thank you all for joining us. We're waiting for Congressman Labrador to jump in. Looking forward to hearing what he has to say. And, of course, throughout the week, we'll hear from Lieutenant Governor Brad Little and Dr. Tommy Ahlquist. A lot going on this week. By the way, really pumped up for Thank You Thursdays. Pumped up every day, it seems, for Thank You Thursdays. But this week, the Indian Creek Steakhouse, located in Caldwell. If you're looking for a unique Western experience, you need to go to Indian Creek Steakhouse in Caldwell. I know what you're saying, Kevin. I live in Boise. I live here. It is well worth the trip. And you can take a look at our great video you can take a look at what you're actually going to win. There's two plates, the Kevin Miller dinner, and that's the Rancher and the Cowboy and Turf. And the pictures do not do the taste justice. And right now, that's available at KIDOTalkRadio.com, our website, if you want to take a look at those photos. And we'll be giving away those meals coming up on Thursday when we're at Compass Public Charter School, promoting our school, securing our future. So Thursdays, we're there with the schools, thanks to CapEd Credit Union and Team Mazda Subaru. And we'll give you not only knowledge, but some nourishment as well. So we're really pumped up, and we want you to listen every day, not just Thursdays here at KIDO Talk Radio. While we're waiting for Congressman Labrador, a couple other stories that we are covering here. And, basically James Comey continues to get a lot of run, a lot of attention. Here is the Miller Morning montage on KIDO Talk Radio.
I don't think he's medically unfit to be president. I think he's morally unfit to be president.
James Comey thinks Trump is unfit to be president. So he must support impeachment, right?
I think impeaching and removing Donald Trump from office would let the American people off the hook and have something happen indirectly that I believe they're duty-bound to do directly.
They're duty-bound? You're a good one to talk, Jim. You're petty, prissy, and priggish.
The real value of this interview is what it says about James Comey.
James Comey is a disgraced, disgruntled, discredited individual.
I think James Comey's higher loyalty is to his wallet at this point.
Because I was operating in a world where Hillary Clinton was going to beat Donald Trump.
Trump's big mistake, of course, was in not firing him on his first day in office.
He had impressively coiffed hair. His tie was too long, as it always is. He looked slightly orange up close with half moons under his eyes, which I assume are from tanning goggles.
It's very Gossip Girl.
And there we have it, the Miller Morning Montage at KIDO Talk Radio. Joining us now, live from Washington, Congressman Raul Labrador. Congressman Labrador, thank you for joining us.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
So here we are. We're less than a month away, sir. You're doing your day job, representing folks in the first CD and running for governor. Easier said than done, I would imagine.
It is. It makes me laugh when some people say that he's not doing enough. They complain that I'm not doing enough in the race. And I actually have a full-time job. I have to represent the people of Idaho. I'm excited to represent the people of Idaho in Washington, D.C. But we're also this weekend, we're going to be in southeastern Idaho. Just this last weekend, we were in southeastern Idaho. We had an amazing event. We had an event where 30 legislators endorsed me in this race. The conservative legislators from the Idaho House and Senate stood by me, and they endorsed me in this race. Idaho Justice Life endorsed me this weekend. Things are going in the right direction. And the best part, we had at Lincoln Day in Idaho Falls, we had 850 people there, and the three candidates for governor were able to speak to the crowd. And then they took a poll, and they did an online poll of the people and who people would rather see as governor. I got 55% of the vote among that crowd of 850 people. I know that's not scientific, Kevin,
right? Yes,
but
sir.
These are the people that are activists, that are out there knocking on doors. These are the heart and soul of the Republican Party. I know when they hear me, when they know my record, when they know the things that I have done, and that's what I spoke to them about. These are the things. While the other two have been running for governor, I have been fighting for the people of Idaho, and they were enthusiastic and overwhelmingly supported me. So that's why I know we're going to do very well in this race.
Congressman Labrador, let's take a look at your platform. If elected, how does the world change as far as state government is run in Idaho?
The first thing that changes is that cronyism ends in Boise, Idaho. Right now, the way the governor's office is being run is 4 or 5 lobbyists in Boise make every single decision. They tell the governor's office what they think is important for the state. They tell them what they think is most beneficial for the state. Most of the time, that benefits them personally or their clients. All that is going to end. Business as usual is going to end in the governor's office. I'm going to stop picking winners and losers in the governor's office. The best ideas are going to rise to the top. That's the first thing that's going to change. The second thing that's going to change is that there's going to be a conservative vision for the state. Not just thinking about what's going to happen the next session or the next 2 years or the next 4 years, but what we need to do at the state for the next 10 years, 20 years, 40 years to make sure that Idaho has an economy for the 21st century, that we're not just relying on low-wage jobs. As you know, Kevin, we have the fastest-growing state in the nation, but we're still in the bottom 10 when it comes to wages, when it comes to per capita income, all that stuff. We shouldn't be. We should be at the top of all the different metrics of success in the United States. We have the best people, we have the best families, we have the best resources, and there's no reason why the people of Idaho should not be at the top of every economic metric in the United States. It's not just about growth. Growth is good, but if we don't have the right high-paying jobs, the growth will not pay for itself. And I want is organic growth that pays for itself, and I think under my administration you will see that happen.
Congressman Labrador, can you introduce yourself to a lot of folks? As you know, you've lived in the district, you've represented the district, before that as a state representative before you were elected to Congress, because, we're seeing this amazing amount of growth come in that may not be familiar with your record and the record of others. People think, they're saying like maybe over 100,000 people have come in since the last election 4 years ago.
That's a great point. So I am the congressman from the 1st Congressional District. I have been the conservative congressman for Idaho. When I was in the state legislature for 4 years, I was the tip of the spear against Butch Otter when he was trying to raise gas taxes in the middle of a recession. I was the legislator that led the fight to defeat the gas tax increase. Unfortunately, I made an enemy out of that process, and Butch Otter and I have not been able to get along very well after that. But I was able to defeat the cronies in Boise that wanted to increase the gas tax at a time when people were fighting to just put food on the table. I made a name for myself as a conservative warrior in the state legislature. Then I ran for Congress. And Kevin, if you remember this better than anybody, when I decided to run for Congress, everybody said that there was no chance that I could win that congressional race because I didn't have the establishment with me. Not just the establishment in Boise, but the establishment in Washington, D.C. They fought against me. I was outspent 3-1 in the primary, and I won by 9 points. And then I was outspent in the general election by a sitting congressman. Many of these new people don't remember that we had a Democrat in my seat. The sitting congressman outspent me 4-1 in the general. My party abandoned me because they didn't want me because I was not part of the establishment, and I defeated the congressman by 10 points. I have been a strong supporter of the Constitution while I have been in Congress. I've created the Freedom Caucus. I was one of the founding members of the Freedom Caucus, which is a conservative group in the House that is trying to keep the Republican Party keeping its promises. I was one of the instrumental figures in getting rid of John Boehner. I took on the Obama agenda. I took on Eric Holder. I've taken on all the bigwigs, and this, it's really important that people understand that platforms are important, but most politicians are going to say similar things in the Republican Party. The reality is who has the character and the integrity and the fortitude to fight against special interest groups and fight against the media. I'm the only one who has shown over the last 12 years that I have the strength and the commitment and the character to take on special interest groups, to take on the liberal media. And in the next few years as a governor, there's going to be more about, what the media and the special interest groups and the liberals want to do to Idaho. And you need a governor that's willing to stand up to them.
All right, Congressman, for old time's sake.
Minnick is a gimmick.
The funny thing is that I actually get along with Minnick really well now. He became a lobbyist, and I talk to him now, and that's the one interesting thing about me. I'm a conservative warrior, and I fight, all the way on the issues that I care about. But I can get along with people of all parties and all persuasions. I just will not stand up for cronyism and special interest groups.
Well, I'm glad you get along with his people. Still don't like me. So, anyway, we've got some quick calls from the usual, and I know you've got to run, so we'll knock this out in 2 seconds. To our old friend pro-life, for Congressman Labrador, you've been asking this question to everybody. Pro-life, please go ahead. Remember, we're at limited time here, sir.
Yes, up in Moscow at the public hospital, a Dr. Stiller is performing transsexual operations. And I just want to know what you think the state government should do about that.
I don't think that the state government should be involved in transsexual operations. I don't think we should. If people want to pay for their own transsexual operations, that's their issue. But I do not believe the state government should be involved in it.
All right, Pro-Life, thank you. Hank in Boise. Remember Hank very quickly for Congressman Labrador.
Okay. What would you do to end the influence peddling of, for instance, firms like Rehberger and Sullivan, where Rehberger serves on state commissions and yet lobbies before state agencies, or his firm does? How would you make sure the people who operate lobbying firms do not hold state serve on state boards or commissions?
That's a great question. We will put an end to. The first thing we're going to ask is everybody to resign who's not. Obviously there's some people that have staggered terms, but everyone who's on a board is going to be new. It's going to be somebody who will have the best interest of Idahoans in mind, and it will be somebody who does not have a conflict with the work that they're doing. I think we need to put real people on those boards. I can't say that there will never be somebody who works as a lobbyist, because some people may have areas of expertise, but they have to be people that will not have a conflict and will not be personally benefiting from their work on that board. And the most important thing is that they need to respond. We need an active governor that will look at what the board is doing, not a governor that is just passively letting those 4 or 5 lobbyists make all the determinations. But we need an active governor that is looking at the work that the board's doing. I'm going to have a person in the governor's office who will look at every board and make sure that the boards are doing the right thing and listening to the people. One of the things that's most frustrating with these boards is that they work sometimes on behalf of the special interest groups as opposed to the people of Idaho. We need to be looking out to what is best for every Idahoan, and I will ensure that happens in my administration. The other thing I'm going to do is we're going to have a phone, a line, or some sort of way for people to make anonymous phone calls to the governor's office. If they have any problems with state agencies, with state boards, if they see something that they feel is untoward or is wrong, they're going to be able to make an anonymous phone call, and we're going to have an anonymous tip line where people can call and make those kind of calls, so they don't have to worry about being something bad happening to them, or their jobs being in jeopardy.
Right,
so we want to make sure that the people feel comfortable coming to us.
Protecting whistleblowers. Hank, thank you for the call. Congressman, thank you. We'll be covering this nonstop until the end, and we'll see you on the trail, sir. Thank you.
Hey, it's great to be on your show.
All right, Congressman Labrador joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. All right, coming up, Eric Parker will join us at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Eric will be part of the Patriots Day celebration today at 11 o'clock at the Capitol. We'll have Eric on, and then we'll be there as well. We want to thank Terry Shepard for making that happen. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And like I said, it's just very important to commemorate and to acknowledge all the great work of the Patriots and our friend Terry Shepard, the Ben Franklin impersonator, who has put this celebration together for years and years and years. Without a lot of recognition, should be commended for this. Our friend Russ Smers will be there, and we're looking forward to being there as well. I believe the governor or the lieutenant governor will be there. And really, it's a celebration from Lexington to today. And we see that type of sacrifice. We hear the type of valor that happens day in and day out. And we go now to Eric Parker, who will be the keynote speaker today. Eric, good morning.
How's it going?
Good to have you with us. So why should people come out today, sir?
Well, it's on Thursday, April 19th. And it's a state holiday. I like to start with that. We have a proclamation from the governor, mandating a state holiday. And really, we believe, that history is important. And the men that lined up and manned the gap so long ago, they really started our country. And they said enough was enough, and they held the line. They were facing the strongest military in the known world, and they still did it. We're talking farmers, ranchers, shopkeepers, blacksmiths, God-fearing, family-loving, just normal men who went and did something extraordinary. And we would like to honor them, and we're going to start honoring them every year. And so the anniversary is April 19th. It's Lexington and Concord. There was 77 men who died that day, and we would like to ask you guys to come out with us. We've got a nice event planned, and come out. It's at 11 to noon. So if you can get the time off, come out. If you can take your lunch, come out and honor them with us.
Yeah, if only I could get the date right. I thought it was today.
No, April 19th. That's the anniversary at Concord Lexington Green. The shot heard around the world.
Eric, how significant is this for you, based on your firsthand experience of fighting against the government?
Well, it's very, very important to me. I've had it brought up to me the similarities in the situation that we went through, and all those years ago, those men on that bridge. And as a matter of fact, the same, ironically, the same words were said on that bridge in April 12th, 2014. Don't fire unless fired upon. We the Idaho 3% and my friends, we live by that. And we hold it dear to us, and that's the way our founders taught us, and that's very important to us.
Would you do it all over again?
I get asked that a lot, and I think that I would definitely show up if people were being hurt, and if our constitutional rights were being violated, and I would most definitely get in my truck and show up.
Eric Parker, we will see you there. How was the gun rally? I caught the video. You did a great job there.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really fun. It was good for our first event, being back out, and we had quite a few people show up, some good speakers, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, Eric, we look forward to seeing you Thursday, not today, and hopefully I'll get my facts right when I'm on stage with you introducing you.
Yeah, April 19th, Concord and Lexington Green. We've got quite a few speakers coming. I'm excited. We've got a little bit of a surprise. We've been told we can actually have a musket to fire off for the shot heard around the world. So we're gonna have some fun. Come out and have some fun with us and get to know us and shake our hands and let's honor these men.
Eric Parker, we'll be talking to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, Eric Parker joining us, a true patriot here. Traffic and weather together. Complete in-depth election coverage. Keep it right here. Coming up, we'll hear more from the congressional candidates, the gubernatorial candidates. Do want to thank Congressman Labrador for joining us, giving us his vision for what he would do if elected to the governorship here in Idaho. Coming up tomorrow, we'll have Brad Little, and then the day after, Dr. Ahlquist. And from now until the end, we will have weekly updates from these guys. And we'll delve into the congressional race as well. Nothing's more important than who will be leading us coming up in the next election cycle. So we want to hear from them, and we want to hear from you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.